Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Carrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey, welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 59 for Friday, November 5th, 2021. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring installation walkthroughs of tractor rollover protection structures, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is CC Hockley. I am the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from Stats Track and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you all for tuning in with us today.
And if you're new to the show here on Guy Fawkes Day and new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the upcoming matchups in the weekend in the AHL for you. We both watch a lot of games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're newer to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes learning the difference between the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners and the United States Tennis Association. That's a real thing that happened. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
Yeah, Sean even had to explain it to me. The UTSA Roadrunners versus the USTA, the United States Tennis Association. And Sean, did you know that the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners play football, their home football games in the Alamo Dome?
I did know that, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Just making sure. That's kind of a neat little thing, you know, since the San Antonio Spurs used to play their home basketball games there. Kind of a big venue for that, but I digress. Let's get started with the show, and we're going to talk about a trade that many folks have been getting quite sick of trending on Twitter for the longest time, and it has finally come to fruition. It has finally come to pass. Jack Eichel leaving the Buffalo Sabres organization. He has been traded to beautiful Las Vegas. Hey,
they even have the Eichel Tower already built here, CC. It's amazing the fan follow.
I thought I saw a Photoshop of his head at the top of that tower. I don't see it up there, but that's okay. They can put it up there. But Jack Eichel getting traded to the Vegas Golden Knights, and boy, did the Sabres get a fairly good haul for it. They get Alex Tuch, a top 10 protected first round pick and second round pick, and last but not least, the Rochester Americans benefiting directly from this last little piece of the trade, Peyton Krebs. And talking online a little bit today on social media, both you and I kind of breaking this down and everything. And what is the benefit of a already kind of hot starting Rochester team? I guess, we went over last week a couple of those wins against Laval where, Laval was the better team, as you said, but Rochester still got the W's. So what does Krebs bring to this team that is already finding themselves second place in the North Division thus far?
To run down some basic stats for you here, 5 assists in 2 games for the Henderson Silver Knights this season, played on the taxi squad, or didn't play rather, for Vegas much of last season, only has 7 AHL games under his belt, not 9 NHL games, goal and 4 assists in 5 games played for Henderson in 2021. Centerman is definitely a top 6 asset at the AHL level, or at least in our very limited sample size has looked very much like that role. Again, I preface a lot of what I say with him in the AHL currently as 7 games does not a significant sample size make. However, I've very much liked what I've seen, and it matches what I thought I would see from him transitioning from the WHL. I don't think he's going to play on a line in Rochester with Peterka and Jack Quinn, just because that line of Quinn, Malone, Peterka has really been a very bright spot for Rochester. And I think that head coach Seth Appert would be unlikely to break that up. I think he's going to find a role on the second line, probably with Linus Weissbach or maybe Michael Mersch or Matej Pakash. I think that could be a good fit, especially as Weissbach and Pakash both kind of have, I don't want to say struggled at times, but they haven't quite found the chemistry they were looking for. They're in need of more of a setup guy, and that's what Krebs is. He is primarily a playmaker. He can shoot, is a good shooter, is a pretty decent 200-foot player. His skating, if I remember correctly, is not his strong suit, but he's not a slow guy. But he definitely still needs some seasoning in the AHL. And granted, the Sabres have struggled a little bit to develop first-round talent that wasn't NHL ready on draft day. So taking guys like Eichel and Dahlin out of the equation, Alexander Nylander, Yoki Haru, who they traded for, who was a first-rounder, they've kind of not have the best track record with guys like that. So it seems like they're trying to do a better job this time around. And the idea of letting Krebs not get yo-yoed, settle him in the AHL, let him play there the season, which seems to be their plan so far with Quinn and Peterka, which again, I really like. I think that's a smart move. I think that's probably what's likely to happen, is it seems like Buffalo has at least learned from past sins here. But this is going to definitely help supercharge what has already been an offense that Peterka, Malone, Quinn line has been amazing. It's driven most of what they've done. Michael Mersch has played well, but as we talked about last week, the sustainability of that is something I question. But if you add Peyton Krebs to his line, well, then I have to question those questions. So I think this is obviously a huge get for the Amerks. I think Buffalo got a pretty good package in return for Jack Eichel. I still think in a vacuum, Vegas got a very good deal here. However, I say in a vacuum because they also are going to have to make moves before Jack Eichel can ever put his skates on the ice in an NHL game, at least during the regular season. Because with Stone, Pacioretty, and Eichel on LTIR, when all 3 of them are healthy, by my math, the Golden Knights will be like $8.25 million over the cap.
Eesh.
And yeah, they could Kucherov it like the Lightning did. And Eichel, even if he's healthy a week or two before the end of the regular season, just be like, but you know what? I think you're going to stub your toe and we're going to be protective until we get to the playoffs where there is no salary cap, and kick that can down the road. But from my look at it, in order to get all 3 of those guys off LTIR, they have 2 options. Either acquire LTIR contracts, which teams probably are less willing to give up after seeing what Tampa did, or B, they're going to have to trade something like Riley, McNabb, and like another low-hanging contract just to get all 3 of them healthy in the lineup. So there's a lot of maneuvering that needs to happen, especially too, trading those guys out means they can't take dollars back in. So they have to trade them for prospects that are either in juniors or in the AHL that can be waived down, or future draft picks. And teams are probably not going to be very likely to give Vegas a very sweetheart deal for Riley Smith and Braden McNabb, Donovan McNabb, different McNabb, distant cousin, but
yeah, right.
But I think you're not going to see sweetheart deals for those assets, because people know Vegas is going to be up against the wall and need to move stuff. So you're going to see them get lowballed a lot. So I think that's going to be the trades that determine how well they did with Eichel here. It's not necessarily the Eichel trade itself, but the pieces they have to send away to make Eichel a part of the roster.
Back on the AHL side of things, Rochester only has 1 game this weekend, and that's against Toronto. but we will get there. It's going to be on Friday. We'll get there when we come to the speed round, but let's get started with our weekend preview, shall we? Of course, we're going to begin in the Atlantic Division, and we're going to talk about, the champion from last season from the 3-team division and in the Providence Bruins. And maybe in my mind's eye, I've been a little too bullish with them because of the fact that they did do so well last year in that 3-team division. But yeah, the Bruins are facing off against the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in Pennsylvania on Friday, and then on Saturday at Hershey. So they're sticking in Pennsylvania, but just going against a couple different teams. Sean, tell me big picture here. What does the what's going on with Providence so far this season?
So they have a -9 goal differential, which is tied for second worst in the AHL. And that seems to be coming from both ends, as they're the third worst in the league in goals for per game and tied for 7th worst in goals against per game.
Eep. That's that doesn't just sound bad. That is bad. So elaborate a little bit more, man. What is causing all of that?
I mean, it's when you're getting it from both ends, it's always going to be a multi-level answer here. So to start with, some of it is just straight bad luck. Their all situations PDO is 95.16. Their estimated PDO 95.27. Nobody's that bad. So that will bounce back for sure. If you're unfamiliar with PDO as a concept, please check out our episode 0. But to very loosely explain, PDO is your shooting percentage plus your save percentage at 5-on-5. The AHL doesn't give us 5v5 data, so we have to estimate it. That's why there's all situations and estimated PDO. PDO ultimately regresses to a sum of about 100. So when you start to deviate a point or two above that, that's when you see good luck versus bad luck. Bad being below 100, good being above 100. I would recommend you go to our episode 0 or some outside resources for further information. But basically, their 95 numbers here indicate that they are getting incredibly unlucky in both shooting and save percentage. And it's getting worse, too, as their rolling estimated PDO, which is their PDO over 2 rolling weeks, is just a line trending down at a 45-degree angle. So it started off being okay and has just gotten crappier ever since. They're also not getting much help from special teams either. Their net penalty kill is around league average. Their net power play percentage is bottom 10 in the league as well. Also, I'm positive it wasn't the plan to have Troy Grosnick play only 1 period in 7 games. He's injured, and the last I heard was week to week. That was 2 weeks ago. So hopefully those weeks have caught up and he will get back to good health soon. But missing the goaltender you were probably planning to at least put some heavy mileage on this season doesn't help. They've also had Stein, Studnicka, and John Moore be involved in what looks like some paper transactions, getting called up and sent back down within a day or so, 3 times already. John Moore, I think, got to at least spend a full week on the Boston Bruins roster, but I'm not entirely sure what these transactions accomplish, the go up a day, come back down a day from a team perspective, but it's probably not great from the players involved. 5-on-5, it seems a fair number of their defensive problems in Providence come from either players not scanning or being aware of threats away from the puck, or not communicating clearly who's responsible for whom. 2 goals from the Saturday game at Bridgeport went in those scenarios. And while, yes, defensive breakdowns happen, and it's usually bad, though, when they regularly involve wide open guys in dangerous areas. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Offensively, I'm not worried yet. They're generating chances and controlling shot share for the most part. I think more of the slump we're seeing is just bad luck than something that needs correcting on a tactical or personal level per se. From a special teams perspective, I've liked what I've seen from the power play puck movement wise, but too many times they're setting up great shooting options with a Royal Road pass or a pass to the slot. And guys are either looking unprepared and unready to shoot those shots, one-time those pucks, or they're looking to make extra passes instead of shooting. I think I would like to see them simplify a little bit more on the power play of when you get a really good pass across Royal Road, those east-west or west-east passes, you need to be in positions to shoot them and not just catch the pass.
Getting a little bit more detailed here, let's talk about Oskar Stein. Big start to the season, basically all came in one game against Bridgeport. What stood out about him, though, in that game? And do you think his success will continue on past the Islanders?
Nope. Sound Tigers. We said in the preseason that Stein has these flashes of a much higher end skill set, especially as a playmaker, where he dazzle for a game or two and go back to looking like a run-of-the-mill AHL middle six forward, which, not a huge tragedy, but at the same point, it's one of those things that it feels like he's stringing along, coaches and scouts in the organization with hope, where they see these moments and they're like, that. And that's what we saw at Bridgeport on, I think it was Saturday. Yeah, that's what we saw at Bridgeport, is that like dazzling display where it's like he looks fantastic. Where is this the rest of the games? But this is the pattern we've seen from him throughout his time in Providence. Take the start of last season. 4 points in his first 7 games, which is not bad at all. Then he has 2 back-to-back nights that ends up with 4 points, and then he has 4 points in his final 14 games. In 1920, 3 points in 3 games around Thanksgiving, then 3 points from December through January, comes alive in early February with 7 points in 6 games, then scores 3 points in his final 9. And a lot of these games where he's just not scoring, he just looks absent. Like he bought a ticket to watch the game. It's a struggle to see like someone who is occasionally looked like a dominant player at this level and then just go through these long stretches where he looks like he's kind of not really wanting to be there. And now, will he find some consistency this time around? Will this be the spark that gets him to, power through to this level? I mean, he's still relatively young. Like he's not an old grizzled guy and like this is just who he is. But I can't really say that for sure if this is going to be the one that gets him to power through and become, the NHL player the Bruins hope that he does. Maybe he finds that consistency, but it also wouldn't shock me if he has 4 points between now and Black Friday. Like that just seems to be the pattern that we've seen from him. I hope that's not the case. I always root for players to, succeed and achieve their best selves, but it wouldn't shock me to see just this is another drop in a very inconsistent but occasionally flashy bucket.
Speaking about players that are hard to get a beat on, have we learned anything about the goaltending enigma that is Kyle Kaiser Soze yet?
Learned is a stronger word than I'd use over a 6-game sample. I thought he's played pretty well, though. Only 1 or 2 of the goals he's let in that I've seen did I really feel like he had a chance at, as most of them, it seems like he's been left out to dry. Yes, it'd be nice if he stops Simon Holmstrom on that breakaway, but it's also a very clear breakaway against a former first-round pick who has dangerous puck handling. He definitely has the athleticism and hockey IQ to make some of these post-to-post backdoor saves that he's let in. But let's be clear, these are also basically the highest danger shots that you can have against you. So wishing he stopped them is really a big ask. I don't think he's quite in the Caden Primo territory where it's like, yeah, he let up goals that were hard shots, but at some point you need to do not just not do wrong, but do more right. I don't think that he is in that territory yet. Again, 6 games this season, only 10 last year. I'm not putting that label on him yet, but I thought he's played reasonably well. It wouldn't shock me at the end of the season if he's, I think he's currently kicking around a 902 save percentage, 903. It wouldn't shock me by the end of the season to see the P Bruins, clean up some of those just, high danger backdoor cross Royal Road passes or giving up breakaways. And he pulls into the 912, 915 save percentage range. I think that's certainly within his outcomes. I wouldn't expect that much more of him just because I think there is at least some ceiling on him this season. But I think at least my takeaways from him have been positive thus far.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that, it's been said a few times on the podcast that, hey, the defensive systems don't really, come into play and get embraced wholeheartedly until after Halloween. Isn't that?
It's usually more around Thanksgiving. So it's okay. I mean, somewhere between Halloween and Thanksgiving. It's usually like the middle stages of November. So we're still about a week or so away from that kind of like tipping point. And I mean, you've seen uncharacteristic mistakes in the defensive zone from guys like Jack Ashan, who made a couple of just plays when I was watching film of like, is that the same guy that we saw last season that was just so and I mean, it's early in the season. Like I said, I'm not trying to, make wild statements based on 6 games. Like, it's still early. There's a lot of, defensive systems that have to gel, even though I'm sure, P. Bruin's new head coach is not, going crazy and changing the whole scheme, but there are going to be some differences that need to get picked up. And I think that that's a lot of what you're seeing.
Yes. Don't forget that Mouginel's behind the bench now. So, all right, let's wrap it up here. Let's talk about a few key things that Providence needs to do. Again, they're playing the Baby Pens on Friday in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and they're also playing the Bears this weekend. So both on the road. What do the P. Bruins have to do to at least be competitive, or hell, even come out with some victories?
Number one is they have to lock down a third period. Providence is -1 in goal differential in the first 2 periods combined, being outscored 12-13. That's obviously far from ideal. You want to be a plus in all the periods, but that's far from the end of the world. 1 goal across a handful of games, that's not terrible.
Yeah.
They are -7 in the third period, being outscored 9-2. And I realize some of those are padded by empty netters, but that cannot continue. That message in the second intermission needs to be one of accountability and focus on details and lock down your end, because giving away games in the third period is the absolute first step into, man, how did we only win 20 games this season out of 76 or like that? Well, if you have third periods, you're getting your butt handed to you, then that'll do it. Yeah. Second big key here, I would say, is let it fly. While Wilkes-Barre Scranton has pretty decent speed on their back end, P.O. Joseph being, I think, out of the lineup for them this weekend likely takes that down a notch. But Hershey has a number of defensemen who I can point to and be like, that guy is not quite fleet of foot. And with guys like Lauko and Stein on the roster, I think they should push the pace out of the defensive zone and look for opportunities to put the puck, to put them in space on the rush with the puck on their stick. We saw Cleveland do it to Hershey this last weekend, where they were able to find speed through the neutral zone, put those defenders on their heels, create zone entries, and create scoring chances because of it. And to me, that's a blueprint that I think Providence should try and copy on Saturday in their game, as it worked very well for Cleveland over the weekend, and I think they should copy that.
All righty. Well, as we do here on the Calder Farmstead, we're going to pick them, and we're going to guess who is going to emerge victorious for the Providence Bruins, or maybe against the Providence Bruins this weekend. I'll start. First game this weekend, Providence, Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I'm going to say Providence gets the W over Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and I'm going to say that Hershey gets the victory over Providence this weekend. So, Sean, what are your picks?
I am going to agree with that. I am going to continue to beat the drum. I do not believe Wilkes-Barre Scranton is a good team. I just don't. All of the metrics we look at in terms of statistics point that direction. Me watching the tape of them looks like that. They are a fake good team that has benefited from some good scheduling. And when you watch the Lehigh Valley game from the other night, it looks a lot like that. It looks like a team that has been trying to fake it until they make it, finally finding out that, man, this game's a lot harder when your goalie doesn't make ridiculous saves. So I'm taking Providence on Friday. I'm going Hershey on Saturday, but I think Providence has a good chance to make that a much more competitive game than from a talent perspective on paper they probably should. I could see them, sneaking away with an overtime win there. Although I kind of like Providence for team speed reasons, 3-on-3, but I think they will at least make a competitive game out of Hershey on Saturday.
That's the human picks. What does the model have to say? After all, it is only a model.
Surprisingly, I think this is one of the few times in which you, I, and the model all agree on, kind of our choices here. The model has Providence by a tiny bit, 51.8% on Friday. Hershey is the favorite on Saturday at a 52.7% clip. So all three of us are aligned in our choices, which I don't think happens very often.
It is a rarity. I mean, you and I oftentimes contradict picks, so that automatically goes out the window. And one of us may align with the model, maybe half and half, 50-50.
It's rare to have all three of us on the same page. So what's probably going to happen now is Wilkes-Barre Scranton is going to win, and then they're going to come back and win on Saturday just to spite all of us because we're all across the board aligned. That's how it's got to be.
That's how the world works. It's just Murphy's Law.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break here. After we go to commercial, as it were, we're going to get to Belleville and Cleveland. If you're just here for the Providence Bruins, though, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you can get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media, as well as links to our YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. All those can be found on our Linktree page. You can see it scrolling below if you're watching on video. If not, I'll spell it out for you. linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills and be right back. All right. We have tackled the Atlantic Division and, of course, the next logical step as we are heading to the next one in the Eastern Conference here. The Belleville Senators against the Cleveland Monsters this weekend. And Sean, let's start with Cleveland. Let's pick them apart at a macro level.
So I'm a big fan of Cleveland continuing to utilize their team speed and talent by employing kind of a fast break style offense where they're looking to get wingers to push the pace out of the zone early, give them a chance to stretch the ice and beat defenders with their feet. One, I think it's a smart use of their talent as they have a lot of speedy guys who have the vision and puck skills to make magic happen on the rush. They also have defenders capable of making those reads, finding them on stretch passes, or seeing the space well to make those plays. Guys like Thomas Šemić, Jake Christensen, Gavin Bayreuther all come to mind. Second, I think it's a damn entertaining style to watch as a fan of the sport, and I think that's resonating with Monsters fans who enjoy watching their team fly up and down the ice instead of this dump and chase, grinded out style of team where there's not a whole lot of excitement until somebody scores. And while I don't think the sales or business exec team has any say in team style, it wouldn't be without precedent. Jerry Buss, shortly after he bought the Lakers, looked for a coach who would employ a fast break style because it would be entertaining to watch. That's almost certainly not play here, but just wanted to make that point that it's not without precedent in professional sports. I do think it's interesting, though, given that the team speed they'd have, you'd think the Monsters' approach to forechecking would be in your face and aggressive. That's usually what teams with speed usually do. Case in point, the Laval Rocket. Stockton did it a bunch last year as well. But that's not the Monsters' approach, though, as instead they typically have a more passive and trappy forecheck, favoring having numbers back and clogging up the neutral zone, letting play come to them rather than dictate pressure and pace that way. One of the instrumental lessons, and that kind of approach to forechecking was instrumental last season in shutting down teams who did use rush chances to generate a lot of their offense, like the Chicago Wolves. And I note that it's interesting because you just don't see teams mix tactics quite like that. It's usually conservative forechecks paired with dump and chase grinding offense, and the more aggressive in-your-face forechecks paired with that willingness to trade rush chances offensively and get into these track meets. We saw last year's combined Wolves team kind of do that, being willing to get into track meets, forecheck aggressively, and willing to just trade chances, knowing that they had the talent to back it up. Laval does it very well. Stockton does it pretty well, and we'll talk about their version of it later. But you don't see a lot of this like very conservative neutral zone trap with stretch the ice team speed on offense.
Let's focus more on the players. That was kind of the team as a whole. JF Berube, he had a bit of a rough season in Ontario last year. My opinion is that he was maybe admiring that Calder Cup banner that he was responsible for when he played for the AHL Manchester Monarchs. That's just my opinion, but regardless, he had a rough go with the Reign in 2020-21. He's been a bright spot. He's actually been a bright spot so far with the Monsters. Why do you think that is, Shawnee?
I think one of the things that I've noticed is he looks a lot calmer in the net this season. Several games last year for the Reign, he looked like he was struggling to find the puck and get in his angle at a timely fashion. He ended up scrambling a lot, overcommitting to his angle once he got there. Some of that was undoubtedly a response to just the poorest defensive environment in front of him in Ontario last season. Some of it simply looked like he was just past his prime and starting to just simply not be able to keep up with the speed of the game. While he's not that old for a professional goalie, he is past his prime playing days. However, like I said, he looks a lot calmer this season and is on time to his reads, getting to his angles and his spots on time. And that's not necessarily because he has an easier workload in the games he's played. While he's not getting peppered, he's still facing a fair number of dangerous attempts per night so far, which at least has been a little bit of a concern from the Monsters defense as a whole. But he looks ready in those spots, and he looks like he trusts the defense in front of them to do their jobs and take away backdoor threats instead of kind of overcommitting or cheating to one side. For my money, I still think he plays too deep in his net in some moments, which paired with a very average frame is a bit of a problem. But I think he's capable of providing above average starting goaltending for the Monsters based on, again, a very limited sample that we've seen so far this season. He's currently a .949 save percentage goaltending, and I think there's absolutely no chance that he maintains anything close to that over the rest of the season. But ending with a .909 seems very fair to me. For reference, historically in the AHL, .909 is usually good for a top 20 finish amongst qualified goalies in save percentage, which I think is very much in his kind of wheelhouse based on what I've seen in a very limited sample, so not gospel.
And again, I think only one goaltender with the Vegas motif that you've got going on. He's down in Henderson, and he kind of boasted that last year, Logan Thompson. But not everybody can be Logan Thompson. So
I don't know if you saw this. I picked him to be the first goaltender in AHL history to win back-to-back Baz Memorials.
Really, no goaltender has done that before.
Only 2 have ever won multiple, and none have ever won back-to-back in the history of the award.
Okay.
He is going to be the first. Book it. Logan Thompson, not Jeff Berube.
Yeah, Jeff Berube didn't win the Baz Memorial Trophy last year. No, that was Thompson. So, well, hey, let's shift a little bit to defensemen, and let me tell you, the model really loves Jake Christensen, and I mean loves, like all caps there. It is grading him currently in the 90th percentile, first pairing defenseman. If you're familiar with the model, that's kind of a given. But what have you seen from him that warrants or maybe doesn't warrant that rating?
I've seen a lot of good instincts offensively from him. He reads the play well to time when he should jump it down into the cycle without taking on too much risk, which is important because while he's mobile and has good edges, he doesn't have the straight line speed to get back if he gets caught down low. And he looks to kind of have recognized that this is, the player that he is. These are the skills he has to work with. And he makes that work for him by timing those really well instead of just kind of flying off the handle and risking getting burned, getting caught at the bottom of the circles. Defensively, he's really impressed me with his consistency in scanning for threats and picking them up when the play is away from him, but still in his end. Quite a few times in the Hershey series, play would be along the far wall, and you'd see him in the slot looking over his shoulder, finding Bears forwards and sticking to them like glue. And while that sounds like a very basic thing that every defenseman does, from the time, they're basically a middle schooler on up, I'm sure absolutely every hockey fan listening to this podcast right now can think of 36 goals they've seen scored where a forward snuck into the slot away from the puck and was wide open because the defense was puck watching or watching the play instead of looking over their shoulders, seeing where guys are. Jake Christensen's done a really good job of making sure he's not on those highlight reels. And I think that's a big credit to him. And like I said, that plus the offensive instincts. And we talked about him in the preseason when we gave our big preview that he was someone who had top 4 upside for the Monsters this season. I don't know if he's going to stick 90th percentile, in that range, but I still think he's going to probably be a very good defenseman for them this season.
Let's head over to Canada, and talk about the Belleville Senators. Currently the second worst power play in the league with a net power play percentage of 3.1% as of Tuesday. Yikes. What do the B-Sens need to do to improve that figure?
Well, one thing is it's definitely gone up at least a little bit because they did find some success in Rochester on, I think it was Wednesday, as we were basically recording our last episode. But I do want to, like, I did see positive changes in that Wednesday game for their power play, but I also think some of that could be, them finally realizing they need to make adjustments. But I do want to kind of address what I saw preparing for them and watching film in a more broad sense. So they scored a power play goal on Wednesday against the Amerks to seize a 1-0 lead, where they actually utilized good puck movement on the outside to draw defenders away from the half wall, then got the puck around to Lucchini, who was ready to one-time for a goal past Rifle. But that setup that you've seen where they're, focusing on working the puck on the left side, collapse the defenders on the penalty kill, and then work it around the edge to a one-time, that kind of setup and that good puck movement, which is what you should do, has been rare. They barely tried to work the puck into dangerous areas in previous games as well. Now, again, they scored a power play goal against Rochester on a tip pass from the bumper spot, but that hasn't been common amongst their power play setups. They also seem like they're listening to the crowd telling them to shoot and are getting impatient and just firing into shin pads or on shots that aren't set up well, and it's just the shooter staring down the goalie, Wild West 10 paces and turn style. Also, for the love of hockey, put the T10 on the other half wall. For the most part, Igor Sokolov has been on the right half wall as a righty. He has a hammer of a shot, and you have him on his strong side half wall where he cannot one-time pucks. Why? Just why? Station your Russian heavy tank in the OV spot and let him go to work. Even if they put him at the net front where he's basically an immovable object, I'd be fine with that. But putting him on the right half wall is just irresponsible. And again, in the Rochester game, I saw him start to get put over there a little bit more. But so many times he was just on the right half wall as a righty. He'd catch a pass and he'd have to catch the pass well. He'd have to crate a little bit because puck control, while his is good, he doesn't have the skill set to rip those Austin Matthews crossbody catch and release one-timers because, yeah, they're really hard to do. But like, he's huge, good at not just screening the goalies and getting tips and deflections, but winning those battles in front, put him at the net front. He's also got an absolute, tank blast cannon for a one-timer, put him on the left half wall, but where you're putting him now on the right half wall is dumb. They can't keep doing that.
Yeah, definitely could be utilized more effectively, either, on his stick hand or in front of the net, like you said. Moving on, let's talk about Erik Braunstrom, and he's had a rough start to the season for sure. What's going on with him?
I'll admit it's a bit hard to tell as he only played a handful of games total last year, and my ability to recall his play from 1920 is maybe not the best. I'm getting old too. And a lot has happened in, life since then. Having seen a bit of him this season, though, I will say he looks fine to me. This is a solid example of why things like plus minus are useless. He's a -5 through 8 games. 2 of them have been on the flukiest bounces you could ever imagine, where, he put one off a forechecker skate behind the net and it just tipped into the net. Like, another, he was on the ice when a dump in just took a weird hop, bounces right in front of the net with the goalie down at the side of the net. Shorthanded puck goes in. What was he supposed to do in those? Like, those are fluky, and that's -2 right there. But none of the others that I saw he was on the ice for have been his fault. He was doing his job when the puck went in the net. Offensively, he's still making heads-up plays for the most part. I think there are moments where he's outthinking himself and trying to play 4D chess, but they're small moments and not a major part of his game. I think there have been a couple spots where he's wasted shots by shooting from distance with no screen or into a close shooting lane. That's more true on the power play, but we talked about that earlier. But even that hasn't been too pronounced. And again, setting up guys for scoring chances is great, but at the end of the day, your teammates still need to put the puck at the net when you give them an opportunity to do so. And Belleville as a team just isn't doing a great job of that right now. They're not getting the best shooting luck, and their shooting talent, while they have some, it's not up and down the roster per se. I can't speak to the team as a whole, but I think Braunstrom will be fine.
All right, same question, but different player this time. Cole Sherwood. I was about to say Cole Kerwood. That man does not have an alliterative name. It is Cole Sherwood, Kiefer's brother, over there in Colorado, of course. What's going on with Cole?
So Sherwood has speed and solid work ethic, but has struggled away from the puck, being ready to being able to read the play and kind of fill in where necessary. And that's something that's been a criticism of him throughout his entire career. It's also a new city and a new country with a new coach and a new system and new teammates. And while, yeah, that's true of basically every guy who goes on a different team in the offseason, Sherwood was from Ohio. Yes, he played in the OHL, but for the past few years, he's played professionally in Ohio where he has roots and family nearby. And even in the, crappy pandemic scenarios, he is able to have some sort of support system that's close to him. So seeing him struggle on the ice a little bit here to find his rhythm, find chemistry, like I said, new place, new team, new coach, new country, that's a lot to kind of, take in, especially it's also got to be disappointing that you're there because your hometown NHL team didn't qualify you. That does hurt a little bit.
Sure.
Still, I think that there are some of his off-puck habits that need cleaning up, and I don't think it would hurt him to dumb his game down a bit until he finds that chemistry and finds that rhythm. But he so far has not necessarily looked disinterested or, like he's kind of just doesn't want to be there, but more of he's struggling to kind of find his timing, find his pace, feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme.
Nice pull. Little cool runnings, man. Yeah. All right, well, let's talk keys to the weekend. Let's start with the Cleveland Monsters. What do they have to do to be successful against the B-Sens?
So this is going to be in general a piece of advice that every team should do in every game, but specifically, I think it has more roots here, and that's go east to west or west to east. Make those Royal Road passes. The Mandalesian and Mad Sogard are likely to be the goalies for the weekend. Both are bigger frame goalies who take up a lot of net and have good technique, solid fundamentals, but neither are possessing elite athleticism and rely more on their frame and technique to make saves and limit rebounds. If they have to go post to post, there's a better chance they won't get there in time because they don't have that athleticism to explode laterally. Hence, look for Royal Road passes, meaning east to west or west to east. We aren't a geography podcast, to force those lateral movements and open up those opportunities. I wouldn't call those weak spots on either goaltender, but it is definitely their least strong attribute. So if I'm Cleveland, I'm looking to make those passes anytime I can.
Next up, of course, other side of the coin, we've got Belleville. What do they have to do to be successful against the Monsters?
You have to make the most with your power plays if you're Belleville. Cleveland doesn't take a lot of calls, so it's going to be important to make the most of them. They have one of the best penalty differentials in the league in the Cleveland. You don't have to score on them per se, but you're going to need to at least, at minimum, gain momentum from your power play opportunities. You're going to need to at least feel like you're building offense, get quality scoring chances, do something. I feel like the meme of the guy poking the stick, that's what you need your power play to be. At least do something, even if it doesn't score. Also, they need to be careful as Cleveland takes its cues from the parent club in Columbus, who practically invented the power kill. They were fourth last season with 6 shorthanded goals, and they already have won already in 8 games this season. So you need to do something on the power play, and that includes not giving Cleveland opportunities to score, because not only are they looking to score, they have guys who have team speed and will absolutely burn, Bernard Docker at the top of the point.
All righty. Well, that's the breakdown. Oh, go ahead.
Second one, real quick.
Oh, sorry.
They need to win the third period.
Yes.
They are currently getting outscored 14-6 in the third period. And from a scrappy team that battles hard for 2 periods to come out and get just rolled in the final frame is not a good look for them as a team. It's not a good look for them in terms of, projecting the future. And it happened to them Wednesday against Rochester. It happened Saturday against Toronto. It happened in their first game against Cleveland this season. They need to play 3 full periods, and that means the third as well.
Gotcha. Sorry, I didn't let you finish that second point.
It's all right. Give me the Kanye West treatment. I know.
Oh yeah. I'm going to let you finish, but all right. Well, hey, let's get to our picks, shall we? And starting off, Cleveland's coming in 3-game winning streak. Belleville's coming in 3-game losing streak. So, we're in Cleveland. And I think the Monsters going to take that first game, but I think Belleville's going to shore it up and not make it 5 losses in a row. I think they shall emerge victorious for the second game. Sean.
I don't think Belleville is as bad as the results have been, especially recently. I think there is reason for some optimism here, although, limited optimism. But I think Cleveland is damn good. I think that they have actually been maybe a little bit better than their results have been. They battled Hershey to a split in a weekend series that I thought they may have been the better team in both games. They've also had some impressive outings, and that team speed and the way they let it fly is both impressive and fun. I'm taking Cleveland Monster sweep. Okay.
Second place in the North Division. No, third place, forgive me. 4-1-1-2. And Belleville in the basement dwelling Belleville, 2-6, 0-0. So only 2 victories for them this year. But like I said, I think they may pick up another one. But you disagree, and that's okay. What does the model have to say?
Unsurprisingly, the model is on Cleveland's side here, 53.3% favored in each individual game.
Gotcha. Well, at least, this must be a record. You're in agreement with the model for 2 series in a row, 2 previews in a row.
Anyway. Oh, don't worry. That will not stand.
To be continued.
All right. Well, we are going to take a break here. After the break, we will get to Grand Rapids. If you were just here for Belleville and or Cleveland, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We will be back talking about both Belleville and Cleveland's weekend series Tuesday morning. So you might want to subscribe so you get to hear that episode right as it drops. Follow us also on social media. We're pretty fun on there. Links to our social media pages, as well as all of our podcast catchers. Our YouTube channel can be found at our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills and be right back. So stay tuned.
Okie dokie. We covered 2 previews in the Eastern Conference, and now we're going to go over to the Western Conference and covering just one team. They've got a split weekend against Iowa and Rockford. Sean, give us the details a little bit more about the Grand Rapids Griffins weekend.
Yep, they have Iowa on Friday. They have Rockford on. They are at Iowa on Friday, at Rockford on Sunday. Very fun bus trip. I'm sure that won't be miserable at all.
Corn.
But we do have some roster moves for them. Cece, what is going on with the Grand Rapids roster heading into the weekend?
Oh boy. Well, the rough and tumble Luke Witkowski was suspended 2 games after a quote cross-checking incident on October 30th versus Milwaukee. And I may have to go back for that and see exactly if that was applicable for the 31st against the Chicago Wolves. But yeah, Luke Witkowski is out, and defenseman Seth Barton also still sidelined with an injury as well. So with a couple of bodies out of the lineup, you of course are going to have to bring in some ECHL guys, and they signed a couple of guys that actually aren't affiliated with Toledo, which was kind of surprising with me. Max Humitz from Kalamazoo and defenseman DJ King from Fort Wayne were both signed to PTOs, which, again, they have Toledo. They have good players in Toledo, and you bring in those 2 guys from other Central Division, ECHL Central Division rivals of Toledo.
ECHL affiliations are made up.
They don't exist.
They exist, but they're like the points, and whose line is it anyway? They're whatever.
The points are there, but they just don't matter.
It's completely arbitrary. Like
that is
you see teams do this all the time, and I just again it just furthers my point. ECHL affiliations are made up. All right, so let's look at Grand Rapids from a team level here. This is a tough team that doesn't mind putting the body hard on their opponents. But as Witkowski's suspension indicates, it can often come at a price. Also, what I was surprised by, too, is hearing the comments from Griffins fans on that suspension. They were like, yeah, that was bad. He deserved that one. Tell me a little bit more, though, about Grand Rapids thus far this season.
Well, I did look it up. Witkowski is going to be out for both games, so November 5th and 6th, going back to the AHL announcement. So they're not going to have that grit at least of Witkowski, who is definitely making highlight reels anytime he hits the ice and hits the opposing team. But I digress. Let's talk about the Griffins. Overall, 2-4-0-1, fifth place out of 7 teams in the Central Division, aka the Death Division, as we've dubbed it this year. Let's talk some numbers. First and foremost, some things that stuck out to me. When the Griffins lead after one period, they are 1-0-0-0. So undefeated leading after one. After two, 2-0-0-0. So if they're leading after one period or 2 periods, they've gotten the victory. However, trailing after one period, they are 0-3-0-1. And trailing after 2 periods, they are 0-4-0-1. So when they get in a hole, it usually, well, it doesn't bode well for them. They are, winless when trailing and victorious when leading. So the goaltenders in those 2 victories that they have faced off against, they won the season opener against Rockford, and then they also won a game last weekend against Milwaukee. Against Rockford, it was Malcolm Subban, and against Milwaukee, it was Parker Gahagan getting the nod and the start in net. And Subban, I tell you what, he hasn't done a whole lot since joining the Blackhawks organization in 1920, whether playing with NHL Chicago or with the Rockford Ice Hogs. And Gahagan, well, he should be with the Everblades because he's an ECHL grade goaltender.
So what you're saying here is in these 2 wins, Grand Rapids has really beaten up on some less spectacular goaltending, and that may be kind of a key result here to what they've accomplished.
Yeah, they put up a 6 spot against Subban, and then they put up 4 goals against Gahagan. So 6-1 victory in that season opener, and then 4-1 victory against Milwaukee on October 30th. So yeah, they've beaten up on those goaltenders for sure. Real quick note before we get into some other numbers, something I noticed about Grand Rapids, they need to win the faceoffs in their own zone because it just absolutely kills them on the score sheet. I know that's kind of a grand sweeping, like, oh, hey, if you don't win faceoffs in your own zone, then you're going to get scored on. Well, Grand Rapids doesn't have the defensive, doesn't have quite the defensive chops to really defend against that. And you kind of went, you pointed the finger
my
up.
thoughts on faceoffs. For those who are unfamiliar, this is a hill I will die on. Faceoffs do not matter as long as you are aware of what you're supposed to do when you win and when you lose. Because the results of faceoffs have largely been that it doesn't matter if you win the draw or not. It matters what happens after the draw. Even if you lose, regaining possession, being, ready for those outcomes, that's what matters. So to me, when you say they need to win more faceoffs, I hear they need to be better prepared for when they lose faceoffs and what that play is supposed to look like and what the other team is going to try and do off of faceoff wins. That's what matters. It's the preparation and the execution after what happens. The actual result of the faceoff, is mostly made up. Even when you look at NHL numbers, it's like, oh, this team touched the puck first, but then was immediately stripped. Well, the team that touched the puck first won the faceoff, even though it completely didn't matter to the next 30 seconds of play.
Right.
So
good point. Very good point. So to amend my statement, Grand Rapids looked grossly unprepared when they lost that faceoff.
There we go.
Oh, well, hey, let's talk some other numbers real quick before we go into the detailed individual player breakdowns. Power play, 7 goals on 28 tries. That is a even 25% clip. That is good for 6th in the AHL. They went 2 for 3 on the power play against Rockford on opening night, but hey, it's the Ice Hogs, and you can beat up on the Ice Hogs if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. Because if Rockford don't win, and if they don't win, well, that's the Ice Hogs, and they're no friends of mine. Little artistic license on that rendition. Don't mind that, because that was awful. But penalty kill, Griffins, 6 goals allowed on 32 tries, 81.3%, middle of the road, 15% or 15th place out of 31 teams in the AHL. They allowed Chicago to go 2 for 6 on October 27th in a 3-0 loss. So, 33.3% power play for Chicago. Not good if you're trying to win a game, no doubt. Goals for per game, 2.57, 26th in the AHL. Not good. Got to get that puck in the net. Goals against per game, 3.14. That's 19th in the AHL. Shots for per game, 24.86. By God, put the puck on the net. 29th in the AHL in shots for per game. Shots against per game, 32. I mean, that's a that is a 7, close to 7 shot differential. I can speak English, I promise. And that's 26 in the AHL. So when you're, in the low 20s, mid to low 20s in the league rankings for shots for and shots against per game average, that's not going to bode well. And it hasn't, because like I said, the Griffins currently, currently 5th out of 7, 2-4-0-1. Yeah. Once again, just not a good place to be.
I mean, not to mention too, they're also, negative in the penalty differential department, taking, 28 power plays to 30, giving away 32 penalty kills. It doesn't surprise me that they're that strong on the power play because Jacob Barber is a power play sniper. They do a very good job of feeding him pucks to him and just letting him rip, which more teams should do that when they have good shooting talent. Belleville. So that's not surprising. If I remember correctly too, they struggled on the penalty kill last year. But let's talk about some things on the individual player level here. Who is making an impact for the Grand Rapids Griffins right now, or at least let's say who is trying to?
Well, you can never count out Taro Hirose. That's for sure. Taro Hirose. I always overthink that one. Just got to keep it simple. Taro Hirose still on the team, still making an impact. He, like you said, he sets him up. I don't know why. I was like, just throwing the leading scorer's name out there because he's got 7 assists in 7 games played. Good point per game clip, good assist per game clip. And the offense, digging a little deeper in there, they have the pieces in place to keep Grand Rapids in games. You mentioned Barber. You mentioned, I'll get to them later. Hang on a sec. But the offense in general scored 2 power play goals on 4 chances against the Wolves on October 31st. Even though they lost that game 6-3, it's like, okay, you're contributing on special teams, but you have completely just, left your goalie out to dry, unfortunately. But they need to work. They need to shoot the puck more. Imagine that, as, shots for per game was rather low. They have yet to outshoot an opponent yet this season. Not a good stat to boast. But yeah, they haven't outshot an opponent yet this season. I think they broke even because this next stat, 1-4-0-1. So that's 6 games, but they've played 7. So they broke even 1 game, but 1-4-0-1 when they have been outshot. 1 victory in 6 games. You're going to need to put the puck on the net more, for sure. Defensively, I've noticed that when going through film and everything, the Griffins cannot bite and overcommit when it comes to pucks in their zone. They've already given up 6 goals one game and 7 goals in another. And it's just, they are just giving up way too much real estate in the fact that they bite and overcommit. Like I said, they let their foot off the gas in the last 3 minutes of the first period versus Chicago, and they get scored on in that, and whenever you pull back, whenever you let off the gas defensively, especially at the end of the period, I think that leaves you more open to getting scored on than it would. I mean, yeah, you look up at the clock. It's like, 5 minutes left, 3 minutes left, don't take shifts off, give it 100% until the period ends and the horn sounds. Griffins were guilty of that a few times, as I noticed. 5 unanswered goals. That's another thing. 5 unanswered goals between the first period and the second period in the Griffins' loss to Milwaukee on October 16th. By God, when you give up that many goals in a row, it is very hard to recover, and you just kind of resign yourself to the fact that we're not going to win this game. So, again, you got to be careful of that. Lastly, with the defense, gliding into their zone when they outnumber the incoming offense. There was a scene versus Chicago where you had 3 Grand Rapids defenders gliding into their own zone, and Chicago only had 2 skaters. So it was a 3-on-2. It was a 2-on-3 rather. And Chicago put the puck in the back of the net, for crying out loud. You cannot do that. I mean, they're taking shifts off. They're not putting in 100% effort. They're not putting in the effort to finish out the period strong. So, yeah, Grand Rapids defense, you've got guys like Ryan Murphy, you've got guys like a Dan Renouf, but you can't clone those two and put them on each pairing, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Next up, finish off this part of the Grand Rapids capsule here. Jonathan Bergran has had a solid start to his rookie campaign. 2 goals, 2 assists, 7 games played. I have been super impressed when he's put the puck in the back of the net. And that's what they need to do more. More on that later. I'll get there. Bergran helped the Griffins get on the board against Chicago. Stein got him the assist. And he also scored the first goal in the 4-1 win over Milwaukee the night before. So October 31st against Chicago, October 30th against Milwaukee. Bergran, he was the one that put the puck in the goal first for either squad. So set that guy up with a one-timer on the wing, and the puck is very likely to go in. Like, he's dangerous. Like, you need to post that guy on the wing, both at even strength and on the power play, and he's going to reap some benefits for you. He is a wonderkind, and he's somebody definitely to watch out for in the Central Division. But Grand Rapids needs to up their defensive game if they're going to get in the win column in the uber competitive Central Division.
So my big question for the weekend is, who is going to be in net for Grand Rapids? It's been a tale of 2 netminders thus far. What do you see as being the guy who takes the starter's crease this weekend?
I feel like we went over this in the preseason preview that we did for Grand Rapids, but can you believe that Calvin Pickard is only 29 years old? Like, I feel like he has been in the league for a long time. Like, I remember
I
ahead.
feel like he's been a kid the entire time too. Like, he's the ageless wonder. And yeah, it's like at some point it's like, wow, he's only 29. And then at the other point too, I'm like, wow, I really still feel like he's 24 and like a young up and it's like, no, this is Calvin Pickard, barely not old man.
Right. And you look at his pictures nowadays and he's got stubble and a kind of a shell-shocked look on his face. Like, I've been playing in Detroit for the past few seasons. Oh my God. That's the look that's in his eyes. But Vegas Golden Knights legend Calvin Pickard, very appropriate, very apropos.
I had completely forgotten about that. Very well played.
Yes, expansion draft pick from the Colorado Avalanche for the Vegas Golden Knights. Calvin Pickard only played in some preseason games before he was traded to the Detroit organization, I believe. But hey, he has put up, his record 2-2-0, but 1.51 goals against average, 0.955 save percentage, 9.955 save percentage. Pretty good. And his record is not indicative of those numbers. It should be 4-0-0, but you have those couple games where the offense just didn't produce. So is there any way that they could ride Calvin Pickard on the weekend and, just kind of hope for the best? I don't think so, but it might be the best course of action this weekend, just to give the other guy a rest. The rookie netminder, Victor Braunstrom, 0-2-1, 4.59 goals against average, 0.844 save percentage. Again, when you have 2 games where you let up 6 goals in net and 7 goals in net, you're going to inflate that guy's goals against average and diminish his save percentage quite. Yeah. Chicago, when Grand Rapids has played the Wolves, Chicago has had the Griffins' numbers. Both of these guys, both Pickard, both Braunstrom, and Jack Drury and Andrew Podorowski were solely responsible for giving Pickard and Braunstrom losses in October. Drury had 2 goals. Podorowski had 2 assists in the 3-0 loss that the Griffins had. And that 6-3 victory that the Wolves had on October 31st on Halloween. Of course, Podorowski had a hat trick and a couple assists, just earning himself player of the month honors, player of the week honors. Yeah, Podorowski made Grand Rapids his personal playground.
Yeah. Quick question here, because
Sure.
I'm trying to look this up right now and failing. Pat Nagle is still in Reading in the ECHL, isn't he?
He is, I think. Let me double check. Let me see.
I still can't believe that, but that the last I checked in is that the Phantoms assigned him in favor of putting Ershon, Ustimenko, and Felix Sandstrom as their kind of goalie rotating tandem, and they sent Nagle down to the ECHL.
Yeah. I mean, like, one, I know we talked about the Griffins not picking Pat Nagle back up. There was rumors of him maybe going into the, being a goalie coach or something like that. But to move on from him and to kind of, and, even within the organization, Sean, Caden Fulker, like, why not give him the opportunity to get some starts over, Braunstrom? But I mean, okay. Detroit going to do their thing.
I don't have a lot of faith in Caden Fulker as well. Calvin Pickard, yes, being more of the, I guess, adult in the room, even though it's weird to think of him like that. Still, he's not going to keep that 955. Nowhere close to it. If he finishes with a 920 at the end of the season, assuming he plays more games, like, to qualify that a little bit, like, gets at least 20 games under his belt, he's not going to be over 920. No way. I will donate to a Grand Rapids charity $100 if he finishes the season over 920. Book it right now. But like, that's the part where I'm just like, why did they not keep Pat Nagle like that? And especially too, like, Pat Nagle is now in the ECHL. I'm sure he's not thrilled with that. Like, this seems like a good move for a trade. And we just had one big trade come off the books. Let's if I'm the Griffins here, that seems like my guy. Like, go get Pat Nagle back.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in Reading like the whole season. Like, he has not been called up by Lehigh Valley.
Oh no, they're not going to. I don't think.
No,
like, they just called up Ustimenko because Ershon got hurt, so he's like in Reading. Is he doing well at least?
2-1-1, 3.03 goals against average, 0.912 save percentage.
I see a save percentage that's 912. That's all that's the only stat I care about out of those. He's clearly still at least capable of stopping pucks. I mean, he was 7 months ago. Bring him back. It's going to solve some problems for you here, because Victor Braunstrom looks like he needs to go to Toledo.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. Give me keys to the weekend here, CC. Tell me what the Griffs need to do here to pull out some dubs.
Yes. So first and foremost, if the Griffins can keep the lead through the first and even the second period, the numbers are on their side, and it proves that it bodes quite well for the Griffins. So if, even if there was instances like where Milwaukee scored the first goal of the game, and then the Griffins scored, and then the Griffins kept scoring, against Parker Gahagan. So even if they get scored on first, if they can at least get out of the first period and the second period with the lead, then that's going to bode well for them. Second key, get Bergran involved. The Griffins have won 2 of their 3 games where he has made the score sheet. The only 2 games that they've won, Bergran has been on the score sheet. So get that man the puck, set him up on those Royal Road one-timers frequently, and third step, question marks, fourth step, profit, as the old meme goes. Third and last key, be aggressive. Be aggressive, but not too aggressive, because that's what got Witkowski suspended. So be smart about your aggressiveness. Grand Rapids is a very aggressive team, but they just need to temper it. Like, they need to make sure they're not taking stupid penalties, because Witkowski was guilty of that quite often, even before his suspension. You don't need to lose guys to suspendable offenses. Keep the intensity up, but keep it under, moderated. Don't lose your cool. You can get in fights if you want to. Saw plenty of those as well from Grand Rapids when I was watching film. But again, don't lose your cool. Keep it tempered, but be aggressive.
All right, let's get into picks. CC, who do you have in this weekend? We have Iowa Friday, Grand Rapids at Rockford on Saturday. Who are you taking?
Well, they just announced, the Iowa Wild did, that Kalen Addison has returned from his stint in Minnesota. So with that said, I don't think Grand Rapids gets the victory against them in their home barn on Friday. But Saturday, normally, Sean, you're the one that gets the goalie qualifier here on our picks, but I'm going to be the one that puts a qualifier here on a goaltender. If Arvid Soderblom is in the net for Rockford, I'm going to say the IceHawks get the victory on Saturday. If not, I'm going to go with Grand Rapids.
I will say I did highlight Arvid Soderblom in the post of graphs from Tuesday, talking about an unexpected hero so far, as he has one of the worst defensive environments in front of him, but has had good success. I am not as confident in Iowa, even plus Kalen Addison. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some Kalen Addison, but getting yo-yoed is always a brutal one to go through. So I'm still not sold on the Iowa Wild. I am never sold on Rockford. I will take Grand Rapids in both games.
Grand Rapids for the sweep. Okay. Very nice.
So the model has Iowa as a 50.4% favorite on Friday. Grand Rapids, the obvious favorite on Saturday, 55.7%.
We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, the model was this close to giving you another, to continue on your consecutive model and Sean O'Brien agreement streak for this episode.
Yeah,
but
we broke it.
Alas, not to be.
Speaking of breaks, we are going to take one here. And after the break, we will get to the best coast in Abbotsford and Stockton. If you're just here for Grand Rapids, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We will be recapping Grand Rapids on Tuesday, so you might want to get that Tuesday morning. Also, check us out on social media. Links to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as all of the places you get our podcast. Are in our Linktree page, which can be found at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills. We will be right back.
Alrighty, last but not least, in our weekend preview for the AHL, we're going to the best coast, and that's the West Coast. Abbotsford versus Stockton. The Canucks versus the Heat. Friday, Saturday in Stockton, California. Let's talk big picture. Stockton started last season, well, quite awfully, and then found its groove and crushed teams. Then they looked to wear down as the exhausting grind of the schedule up in the Canadian division seemed to weigh on them. At their peak, though, they were an immensely fun team to watch as they could fly, and they loved to get in track meets with the Canadian teams. New coach this season as well. They call him Coach Love. They call him Coach Love. Yeah. Anyway, Stockton's been off to a really hot start this season. Them in Ontario, leading up the top of the Pacific Division standings there. What's been the difference between the Cale McLean led Heat from last year and the Mitch Love Heat from this year?
So there is a bit of differences that we've seen, at least so far, in the approach of both Heat teams under different coaches. At their peak last season, it seemed like the Heat wanted to dial the speed of the game to 11 and just relentlessly pursue the puck wherever it went. They were physical, in your face, and attacked off odd man rushes that started as plays broken up in the neutral zone. And there is still a lot of that in the Heat's game so far, but I feel like it's been turned from 11 down to like a 7 or 8. It's still a fast, physical team that pursues the puck, but they feel more responsible now and can shift gears in games to be a bit more trappy or control the pace. I've seen less of those rush chances from neutral zone turnovers as they're applying less direct pressure in the neutral zone. But this also means when the forecheck gets beat cleanly, they have fewer odd man rushes going the other way. But that also means that fun, quick strike, counterattack style play, like those kind of plays, aren't there as often for them. I still say I think their D under Coach Love are somehow more aggressive, though, jumping into the play during forechecks and during the cycle than what was done under Cale McLean. Again, though, this feels like an opportunity thing. As a defenseman, you can't just jump into the play when all your forwards are down the ice already, or you're basically asking for a 3-on-1, 4-on-1, bad highlight going the other way. Whereas now that slightly dialed back forechecking pressure, forwards are able to cover if, say, Nick DeSimone wants to step up and step in and make a move in the neutral zone or at the blue line.
Sorry, I was looking up a little bit of stats. Stockton has yet to lose in regulation this season. They are 5-0-1-0, 0.917 points percentage. Not too shabby to start off the year. And by the way, your little allegory about, last season playing at 11, this season dialing it back a little bit to 7 or 8 and kind of pacing themselves a little bit, can confirm if you continue to play at 11, your goaltender will spontaneously combust. And it's going to be a recurring problem for you. Little Spinal Tap joke there. I knew you'd get it. Anyway, so speaking of Nick DeSimone, he has been the Heat's MVP on defense so far this season, according to The Model. He's rated in the 97th percentile as a top AHL defenseman. That's elite. He's had a track record for offense, but he's never really been known as a defensive-minded player. Sean, has that changed at all this season?
Well, first and foremost, only one of his assists is a primary assist, so let's not get too carried away here.
Sure.
He has offensive upside for sure, and I think he could finish as a top pairing defenseman according to the model, but 97th percentile is probably not where he belongs. But that's the fun of the early season analysis. There's a lot of noise in such a small sample size, and we have to kind of come in and figure out what's sustainable and what's not. Now, I expect him to still, have an offensive impact and all of that, but I don't think he's going to do so at quite the clip we've seen. Defensively, he's still about where I remember him, mostly solid in his end, but makes some misreads during coverage, but infrequently enough that it's not a, benchable offense. He also takes risks during breakouts that I don't always agree with. And by risks, I mean making stretch passes that seem like pipe dreams from my point of view, trying the deke forecheckers in front of his net instead of just making a safe pass on the reversal. To that end, I think Kevin Gravel is a good D partner for him, as he's much more stay at home, be physical, and so on. And that's where DeSimone is at his weakest. So I feel like they balance each other out very well.
Yeah, it's nice to have that balance for a D pairing. I know we've talked balance in many different ways for defensive pairings, but Gravel and DeSimone, yeah, especially when you have that weakness that you're gonna, potentially get exploited. That's the word I was looking for. Enough about Stockton. Let's go to Abbotsford and talk the baby Nucks, the baby Canucks. Not coming off of a great weekend against Ontario, but so far this season, when teams have faced off against the rain, that tends to be the common trend that Ontario has gotten the victory. But hey, back to Abbotsford. Sean, what have you seen from them recently?
Some of their problems were forechecking effectively when your team is not able to match the speed of the opponent, which also doesn't bode well for them this weekend against another speedy California team. Some of it is the output from their middle six. Sheldon Dries was really a one-man machine on offense, and I liked what I saw from the fourth line in Keppen, Walters, and Nielsen. But the Folk and Stevens lines left me wanting a bit, and I know when you lose your top two forwards to call-ups and Will Lockwood is still out with injury, finding offense is going to be a challenge. Playing defenseman Devontae Stevens at forward isn't making it any easier. And some of this is why we were a little down on the Abby Nucks at the beginning of the season. Yes, they had a good top six with quality veterans, but their bottom six was very concerning. And when call-ups and injuries happened, like they are, the well was not going to look anything but dry. And here we are.
Let's get out the magnifying glass. Nothing quite like losing two of your top six forwards, as you mentioned, right before a weekend showdown against the best team in your division. Big old woof. Big ouch, for sure. But hey, Abbotsford responded with its lowest scoring output of the season, and that's not a very good thing. Who needs to step up for a weekend series in Stockton?
I think first and foremost is Phil DiGiuseppe. He had a good weekend against Ontario, but has looked like a ghost out there at times, and then comes flying in with a swift shift or two where it's like, oh yeah, he played 6 NHL seasons.
Oh,
He needs more of the latter out there and less of the, hey, where's Phil DJ? He needs to be more of a consistent presence on the ice. Another is Carson Folk. He's been pointless in 4 straight, doesn't even have a shot on goal in 3 straight. That's not good. And the Canucks have definitely been losing the scoring chances battle when Folk has been on the ice for them. And that's also very not good. I'd also add Madison Bowie to the list. Sorry, Madison Bowie. Even though I get the impression he's probably hurt and won't play this weekend after having a friendly fire incident with Cameron Schilling, I can't speak to his mental state and wanting to be in Abbotsford versus Vancouver at this point in his career where he probably feels like he's an NHL caliber defenseman. That's a different conversation, but from the looks of his play on the ice, he certainly doesn't look like a guy who's spent that time at the NHL level. He's taking bad penalties and in general not creating much offense despite getting power play time, getting favorable matchups. Yes, I know he scored the OT winner against Henderson, but he's literally all alone in the front of the net there. If it had been tragic if he didn't put that one home. I've been underwhelmed with his game, and I also don't think that Cameron Schilling is a good partner for him. Much like we talked about balance with Nick DeSimone and Kevin Gravel, I don't think Cameron Schilling is a good balancing point for him, as their skill sets overlap a little bit more instead of complement. And I know chemistry is such a touchy thing amongst players of who they play well with, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, but they do not look to be on the same page. Case in point, the friendly fire knee on knee.
Yeah. It's gosh, that's such a hell of a way to get injured. Like that it baffles me when you just run into your own guy for in whatever circumstances, and it's just like, I mean, it's bound to happen. You're on, two sharp blades skating around on frozen water. It's bound to happen every now and again. But hey, let's talk keys to the weekend, shall we? And let's see. Did you want to go first, or did you want me to go first?
I'll let you go first here. Cece,
okay.
Take Abbotsford. What are the keys for Abbotsford for this weekend?
Sure. Observations that I've noticed from Abbotsford, they need to clog the neutral zone. They got manhandled by a very fast Ontario team who used their team speed very well. Stockton, of course, as we've mentioned, they've got a ton of speed up and down the lineup, and they will likely be looking to get north and south early and often. They're going to need help from the Heat, from flying through the neutral zone, or it's going to be a very long weekend for them. They're going to need to keep the Heat, rather, not get help from the Heat. I said that wrong. They're going to need to keep the Heat from flying through the neutral zone. Otherwise, it's going to be a long weekend for the Canucks. Secondly, stay out of the box. When Stockton's power play is good, while Stockton's power play is good and found a bunch of success against the San Jose Barracuda, the entire Pacific Division has struggled to kill penalties this season, and the Abby Nucks are not an exception to that. Don't do dumb stuff after whistles. Be disciplined, because if you start the parade to the penalty box like you did against Ontario, good luck to you. It sounds like Abbotsford having a little bit of Grand Rapids in committing foolish penalties over in the Pacific Division. Maybe they have a soul brother over there in the Central. Anyway, that's enough about Abbotsford and their keys to the weekend. Sean, let's talk Stockton. Let's talk their keys.
I usually don't like to just make the opposite point that you did, but after seeing Abbotsford struggle with Ontario speed, it's pretty hard not to go to that well. Stockton should look to play fast here, stretch the ice, do the Stockton things that they've been doing. I don't think it would be wrong here in the, some of the points in the weekend to maybe take that 8 and, turn it up to 10. Although, this one goes to 11, so it probably makes it better. Second, I would say, you got to get on the board first, keep the pressure on. Abbotsford hasn't won a game yet when trailing after one, and isn't so hot when being outshot. So my goal here would be to start hot, press early, and keep my foot on the gas for 60 minutes if I'm Stockton here.
Fair. Let's get to our picks, and I'll take the onus and go first. Stockton, I tell you, man, they've been hot. No pun intended. Okay, maybe a little. They have been burning through the Pacific Division like a California wildfire.
Ooh, offside, CC.
Yeah, it's been brutal. It's been, I with family in California, can confirm those wildfires can get out of control rather quickly. And I think it's a pretty apt comparison. And with that in mind, sweep. They're going to sweep the weekend.
I mean, Stockton's too fast, but I have got to see Artur Silov's steal games for the Abby Nucks already. I think he's probably in net Friday. And I think he is going to put on a heroic voodoo effort and steal Abbotsford a game Friday. So I am going to take the split. But I do agree that Stockton will very likely look like the better team through both games. But it's almost like Artur Silovs should have gotten more than one game last year in Manitoba. I don't know. It's wild.
No, Moose. But that's a different story. Come on. That was a good joke. Iowa Wild, Manitoba. Okay, whatever. My humor's lost on you. Anyway, what does the model have to say about it?
The model has Stockton as a pretty big favorite for a hockey team. You don't see a lot of 57, anything over 55. They are a 57% favorite in both games. Yeah, no Will Lockwood, no Nick Patan, no Justin Bailey. Yeah, that will do some damage to how the model thinks of you.
And honestly, as much as I predicted the sweep, Seeing Seelovs in that exhibition game against the Kraken earlier in the preseason, the first NHL preseason game for the Kraken, like I was impressed, and I kind of he's got that voodoo going on. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if your prediction comes true, but
he's already stolen games for them this season. So I think he is more than up to the task to steal Friday if that's the game he starts. I think it will be, and I'm going to stick to Friday, even if it's not. But I think Artur Silovs could steal a game here. We're going to take a break here. After the break, we will get to the speed round where we will pick the rest of the games for the weekend in rapid succession. If you're just here for Abbotsford and Stockton, thank you for stopping by. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion, because we will come back on Tuesday to recap this, and you'll probably want to hear about that. So also don't make sure you check us out on social media. Links to all our social media, as well as all the places you can find the podcast that are at least the popular ones, can be found at our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills. We will be right back.
All right, we've gotten our 4 divisional deep dive series previews, so you know what time it is, and you know what that means. It's time for the speed round. All right, let's talk about our weekend series. First up, Bridgeport at Hartford on Friday versus Hartford on Sunday. Sean.
Give me Bridgeport your Friday, but Hartford Sunday.
For me, reverse those picks. Give me the home teams. Charlotte versus Lehigh Valley Friday and Saturday. Shawnee.
With the monkey off their back in Lehigh Valley for finally getting a win on the board, Charlotte both games.
I'd say Lehigh Valley carries some momentum into Friday, takes that game, but they lose on Saturday. Henderson versus Tucson Friday and Saturday.
I think Friday is going to be a Logan Thompson start, so I will take Henderson Friday. Then Mr. Hyde shows up to split the weekend for Tucson.
You know, Sean, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. Next, we have Hershey at Springfield on Friday and versus Springfield on Sunday. Sean.
I'm taking Springfield in both.
Me too. I say they take both the games in this split weekend series. Moving on, San Jose versus Texas Saturday and Sunday. Shawnee.
Texas two-step here. They take both.
After losing Tuesday and Wednesday against Colorado, Texas needs a jolt, but will only get a split. Saturday Stars, Sunday San Jose. All right, just to Friday, Bakersfield at San Diego.
Gulls get back on track here. Gulls big.
I disagree. Bako get another W over the struggling San Diego Gulls. Manitoba at Milwaukee, go for it.
I have to believe the ads are going to right the ship here sooner rather than later. I will take Milwaukee.
It's always Meese night here. Manitoba comes to the States, and they win. Rochester versus Ontario, like we mentioned at the top of the program. Sean.
Rochester versus Toronto.
Sorry.
The whole no D all O scheme seems to be working for the Amerks. So who am I to step in their way? I will take the Amerks.
Did I mess up Rochester versus Toronto? I feel like it's the Amerks and the Marlies. Anyway, it's time for the Krebs cycle in Rochester. I'm going to go with the Amerks. Syracuse versus Utica. Sean.
No Holtz, Syracuse.
I second that. It's crunch time. Saturday, let's talk Bakersfield versus Ontario.
Black and silver bandits, baby.
Ooh, Ontario. Oh my. Next up, Chicago versus Manitoba.
Very torn here. Coin toss, I will say Chicago.
Yeah, Wolves are getting hot in a lot of ways. I think they stoked the Flames with a dub. Colorado at San Diego.
Colorado in overtime.
All right. I say Colorado by a fair margin. Hartford versus Wilkes-Barre Scranton.
Hashtag still don't believe. Give me Hartford.
I say WBS. I think is going to surprise you. Iowa at Milwaukee.
I'll go Iowa here, as this feels like a Barabo start.
We are of the same accord. Wild. Laval at Syracuse.
Laval in a very fast-paced game. Speed.
I say it's going to be Syracuse in a close one. Springfield at Bridgeport.
Sound Tigers with home ice advantage. I will take them on the island of Connecticut. Sound Tigers.
What is a Sound Tiger? What is a Connecticut Islander? I don't know, but they're going to win. Utah. How about Utica versus Toronto?
No Holtz still. Toronto.
I tell you, Utica's loving the black and red, and they're going to make Toronto see red on Saturday. Sunday, last but not least, last day, Chicago versus Milwaukee.
I'll take the Wolves here. Adds too exhausted to keep pace.
Wolves got the weapons. I say Chicago over the Ads in this one. Colorado at the Black and Silver Bandits in Ontario.
Their reign goes down below. Ontario's win streak comes to an end. EAGLES.
Wow. I'm going to say Ontario's off to a hell of a start, and they nip Colorado's recent win streak in the bud. Laval at Utica.
After the boat race they had against Syracuse, Laval is just more exhausted than Utica. I'll say Comets an ugly 2-1 game in overtime.
I'm going to say Utica's thankful to be home, but Laval is going to edge them out. Last game to preview in the speed round, Manitoba at Rockford.
I can't imagine me picking Rockford too often this season, so I will do it here because I think Mikhail Burden will start every game this weekend because it's Nice night every night. So I'm going to take Rockford here.
Both teams are going to come off a 3-3 on Sunday here. Last game, they're going to be both worn out. Give me Rockford at home. And we're done.
That was a lot. This feels like, we only added 3 teams this season, but man, it feels like this goes on a lot. Like, this is maybe not the speed round, but the medium round.
I mean, we got the, the Mario music to try and inspire us and to go quicker, but I feel like, maybe we need to shave off a little time and get back to our PR, our personal record here, but we'll try our best. But hey, guess what? Speed round's done. That's it for the show. So thank you for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment / wrestling programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. You click it and it's a big list. And enjoy. And of course, thank you for enjoying us. A lot of choices for podcasts, not just on the Full Press Coverage Network, but in general. So thanks for joining.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe to get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching it on YouTube, like the video, comment on what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION, so we can make music for you too. Cece, where can people find you?
Well, my name is CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL. We are so close to 400 followers at that account. But in my personal Twitter account, over 1,300 followers. Very grateful for that. You can find that over at @CCHawk, SEESEEHAWK. Again, I tweet about hockey. It's not a surprise, not something I'm blindsiding you with, but hey, I also tweet about wrestling. I also tweet about music. I've got other tweets in there as well about TV shows and stuff. So I'm a multifaceted individual. What can I say? You can check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Enough about me. Sean, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. If you go to Sean O'Brien81 on Instagram, that's a different guy. You can find my stats work where we talk all this PDO, point shares, all of that stuff. You can find all of that on my Tableau page in, pretty graphs and stuff like that. Click on things, maybe learn a thing or two. That is all at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, lowercase, all one word. Cece, take us home.
That will do it for episode number 59. 59 of the Calder Farmstead podcast. For Sean O'Brien, my esteemed co-host, I am CC Hockley. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in, watching and listening. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.